Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HowStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. I'm speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. Welcome back to the show, Larry.
It's always great to be on the show.
Larry, some people have expressed concerns about electric vehicle battery fires, and how does that relate to recycling those batteries?
Well, that's an interesting question, Jim. The battery fires made all the news back like in Boeing in 2013 when they had the fire, and they had a lithium cobalt battery. The reality is that, back 5 years ago or 6 years ago, there was a lot more discussion about battery fires. And now we haven't seen a lot of it in the last several years, but now Tesla's had a fire in Shanghai, and I guess it was pretty spectacular. Now, one of the ways that a fire will start in a battery is when the battery cathode material is processed and made. It involves a lot of grinding and crushing and where you get a lot of metal particles. And I'm not talking about, handfuls. I'm talking about, parts per million, maybe 1 part per million. But that 1 part per million can get into a battery, and what happens is it basically makes a little hole between the membrane, between the anode and the cathode. And that's a short. And when that short happens, the battery blows up or catches on fire. And that particle is introduced through the process, usually the mining process. So when you look at our recycling program, just before I get into the recycling program, we had a process for lithium manganese batteries. And we had pretty clean material. It was a high purity, clean material. We made batteries out of it. And that's from the Artillery Peak ore. The resulting thing of that was that we didn't do any crushing or grinding, so there was less chance of introducing metal particles into the mix, and which made it a safer product to use. But that said and done, now that we're into recycling, and we've borrowed a lot of information off of the manganese process, and that should even clean up the cathode materials even further, so there'd be less and less and less chance of a metal particle getting into a battery. Not to say that it couldn't happen, but there would be certainly a level of safety in actually recycling than using raw material. So, I just wanted to mention that we have a process that once it's recycled, it probably has a much lesser chance of any kind of a short resulting in fires or explosions. And so, that's another plus on the side of recycling. And nobody wants to be, those cars, they're highly flammable once they catch on fire, or they can explode. And nobody wants to be caught up in that, so or have it parked underground, for example, and the battery catches on fire, and that can be a disaster for an apartment building or even an office complex or anything. Nobody needs a fire in the parking lot, underground parking lot, I should say. So that is something I wanted to bring up, Jim. We have a process that has got some advantages. It certainly has a lot of advantages with recycling. You don't have to go back into mining to get the cathode materials to put into a battery. We get a high purity from the recycling, as we did in the manganese process, and that should eliminate a lot of these problems. So it just adds one more layer of, the advantages of recycling. And, certainly a lot of companies that are out there, now they're talking 10 years or so on a battery that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And whether it's there's a lot of truth in that or not, I don't know. But it doesn't matter. They eventually end up in the recycle bin. There's enough to do for a company like American Manganese, it's a recycling program. Today, you don't have to wait 10 years for another batch of batteries to come free. They're coming free every year. And so it's another plus for recycling. It's just recycling is the way to go. It's socially conscious. It's a closed circuit. It's a cradle-to-grave solution, and it saves on having to open new mines or dealing with places like the DRC where you have doubtful quality in the material that you're receiving. So recycling is here to stay. There's a lot of interest in it. We're getting a lot of interest in it. And all we need is somebody to write that big check, and away we go. And we're looking at, perhaps looking at 50 tons a day because, it really depends on the results from the pilot plant, but I'm not seeing any major barriers. And so it's and the pilot plant is still scheduled to be finished by the end of next month, although we haven't really started on the stage 3 yet. And because we're waiting for a membrane, and because you got to remember now, as we patented the process, we kept developing new ideas that required new fabrications, and we're trying to top this off. We know we got another patent to file. We got one filed, and we should be hearing any day on that one. And it's just upward and onward for the company, Jim.
Larry, for people new about American Manganese, what are you all about?
Well, American Manganese is a critical metals company that started out as a manganese processing low-grade manganese in Arizona, which is the answer to a lot of the U.S. government's domestic supply for manganese metals or dioxides. And, we've just recently trademarked our process for recycling called recyclico.com. You'll be seeing more and more of that as we move through the next few months. And we are traded on the Venture Exchange under the symbol AMY. We're traded in the U.S. under the symbol AMYZF. We're traded on Frankfurt under the symbol 2AM. You can visit our site and get all the information. That a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about is on our site at AmericanManganeseInc.com. You can phone me at 778-574-4444 or just send me an email at LREAUGH@AMYMN.com.
Larry, thanks a lot for the update.
Well, you're welcome, Jim.
We've been speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. I'm Jim Goddard. Our conversation took place on April 26th.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.